What is up, everybody? Welcome back for another video. Now, the question of the day is Facebook's Libra coin a threat to Ripple's XRP? Now, the short answer is yes. Any new competitor into this space is a threat to XRP, is a threat to Bitcoin. But that's very surface level. Once you dig a little deeper, you'll see where the playing field isn't quite as uneven for a big behemoth like Facebook as it may initially seem. So, I really want to stress the idea that just because a big company is coming into a space, it does not mean that they will be successful. If you think about Facebook's Libra coin, what is the competitive advantage for that? Now, I come from startup background where I've started companies, I work in small startup companies, even in the crypto space right now. And the main thing that makes a product successful from the start, it isn't scale. And currently, Facebook's competitive advantage right now is scale. They have over 1 billion, almost 2 billion users. They have multiple platforms. But just because they have all of these channels and have all of these users, it doesn't mean it'll be successful. Scale is not what makes products successful. It's actually a major myth in the startup world. Now, this first article I wanted to talk about is titled "When Corporate Innovation Goes Bad: The 141 Biggest Product Failures of All Time." We're not going to look at all of them, but I just want to use this as a way to illustrate that just because a big company does something that has a lot of influence, it doesn't mean that they will be successful. And the first one, biggest flop, is Coca-Cola changing the Coca-Cola recipe. All right, the users, the drinkers, they didn't like it, they revolted in their way, and they ended up changing it back to the original formula. The Ford Edsel car, they threw so much marketing, close to 40 million or $100 million in marketing to sell this car, Ford did. But it didn't work because the consumers didn't want to use it. And it's pretty ironic. Number 3 is Facebook's phone. When Facebook came out with their Facebook phone, everyone was thinking, oh, they've got 1 billion users at the time, and they're gonna just distribute this phone to all of the people that use their platform. It's gonna be perfectly integrated into Facebook. Who isn't going to use this phone? Well, the answer was everybody was not going to use this phone. Nobody was going to use this phone. It was a major flop, and we just don't hear about it because Facebook's been super successful in other areas. So I really want to keep the thinking that yes, it is something to worry about, Facebook's Libra coin, but it's not a guaranteed success. And the more we look into it, we'll see that it's not a guaranteed success. So, second article, well, not an article, just a Wikipedia page, is something that I really wasn't aware of. But Facebook had this thing called Facebook credits, which were a virtual currency that enabled people to purchase items in games and non-gaming applications on Facebook platform. $1 was equivalent to 10 Facebook credits. There were 15 currencies, including US dollars, pounds sterling, euros, Danish krona, and it was expected that Facebook would eventually expand credits into micro payment systems open to all Facebook applications. Sounds great, right? Well, they went into alpha stage, second paragraph, in May 2009, and then went into beta February 2010, and came out of beta 2011. Now, the idea was that Facebook, or all game developers, were going to use Facebook credits, right? Their Facebook's virtual currency. Facebook came in and said, okay guys, you're building all of these cool games on our platform, so use our currency. They're trying to make it theirs again. They want control. And in return, Facebook would retain 30%. I wish you wouldn't highlight all this, but Facebook would retain 30% of all of the revenue generated by these developers and they're using the Facebook credits. It was essentially their way to sort of be an app store. You know, the app store, it's the same exact proportion of revenue share for app developers in the app store. You get 30% and developers get 70%. Yeah, Apple gets 30% of all in-app purchases and developers get 70% of that revenue. Well, it all sounds great, right? But in June 2012, less than a year after they got out of beta, or about a year and a half, Facebook announced it would no longer use its own money systems, Facebook credits. So guys, they've already tried this. And as far as I see it, no one wanted to use it. Facebook tried to take control and tell people to use their currency. And it didn't work. And now Facebook's trying to do the same thing. What's different? Alex Cobb said it great. The thing that's different is it's now just Facebook credits with a Lambo body, right? Something just souped up and just has so much lipstick on it. It's like end customers aren't concerned whether they're using blockchain or not, whether it's decentralized or not. They don't give a crap. What they care about is the value it brings to them. And maybe it will bring them value. Who knows? We'll see. But the biggest winner in all of this is Facebook, because they will be getting a lot more value out of people using their coin than the actual users themselves. And that is what tells me foundationally Facebook's Libra coin will not be very successful. And guys, I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. But it's what I'm feeling after diving deep into everything. So now let's move on to the next aspect, or a video from Thinking Crypto. This guy's really good. He moderated this interview with Caitlin Long very well, who she is a Wall Street veteran and on the board of the Wyoming Blockchain Task Force. Who knew Wyoming had a blockchain task force? Well, we know now, but basically she comes in very well versed on the topic, the industry as a whole, as well as what Facebook Libra coin is trying to do. And what was really interesting is that she painted the picture that Facebook, yes, they're targeting emerging markets, they're targeting the unbanked. But what's interesting to me is it seems to be totally opposite of what XRP is trying to do. Facebook's trying to come in and replace central banks in these developing worlds to become the central banks in all these developing countries. That's scary. A corporation literally owning countries. That's very scary. Whereas XRP is trying to work with these central banks to make them more effective in what they do. So I think of it like this. Facebook is essentially swimming against the current, trying to fight these central banks, right? Whereas XRP is swimming with the current, essentially just trying to help. And they're doing a good job about it so far. But it's really interesting because that's where all the power is right now, in central banks. So working with them in a way that decentralizes the system, decentralizes sort of the banking industry, it's a more guaranteed way to ensure that the change you're trying to implement actually implements it. Facebook, on the other hand, is just going the bully approach. And what's super, super interesting is that there are already leaders of nations that don't want this to happen, that don't want Facebook to do this. And here's the last article. Facebook token runs into instant political opposition in Europe. Facebook Inc.'s ambitious plan to roll out its own cryptocurrency ran into immediate political opposition in Europe, with calls for tighter regulation of the social media giant, as if Facebook's not already having enough issues in Europe and everywhere else in the world right now. French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire said the digital currency known as Libra shouldn't be seen as a replacement for traditional currencies. It's out of the question that Libra become a sovereign currency, Le Maire said in an interview. It can't and it must not happen. So he's currently gathering a group of 7 central bank governors and people with influence in within central banks around the world, and essentially going to fight this. Now, is this fight necessarily going to keep Facebook from doing it? No. Could it slow it down? Yeah, and that's great. Could it also just be more publicity for the coin? It could. But what's important here is that all of a sudden, XRP and central banks have a common enemy, and that's Facebook. So if central banks see a threat from Facebook, now XRP doesn't look that crazy to work with central banks. So I know everyone's saying this, and it's an easy way to sort of just avoid any kind of competition, any kind of bad news, that Facebook coin is only going to help XRP. I actually think that. And this is not just shilling XRP. This is not just ignoring the bad news, because as an intelligent investor, you have to take all news seriously. And if you don't, that's when you lose a lot of money. That's when you make a lot of mistakes. But after all this deep dive, one, Facebook coin, Libra coin, it doesn't have a foundation of which consumers really want to use it. All it is really marketing. Facebook credits with a nice Lambo body, right? Two, Facebook is trying to bully their way into the financial industry. And they're trying to take over central banks essentially. And central banks hold the power right now. And that's going to slow them down too. And number three, Facebook is giving central banks a common enemy with XRP by trying to fight them. And it's only helping the publicity of cryptocurrency as a whole, but also it paints XRP in a great light for central banks. So guys, don't be too worried about this. Keep doing research, because there's nothing wrong with learning more and more as much as you can about this. It's what intelligent investors do. But at the same time, I am not a financial advisor. I don't know anything. I'm an idiot. Don't listen to anything I said. But these were all my opinions about what is happening after I dove really deep into this Facebook Libra stablecoin. So guys, I wish you the best, and just keep strong in whatever you want to do with XRP. I'm holding for sure. Thank you. I'll see you next time.